And what I love about the story, we'll touch on a few of those themes in a moment, but there's some key things there. Obviously, one, operating within the restrictions. There's still a lot that you can do. Two, tapping into the community and actually getting out there and sharing your message across. Three, really the fact that, again, there's a lot of restrictions in place, but there's still opportunities for success stories to come out of that. So we'll touch on some of those themes in a moment. When we cover off on some of the detail. Jane, in the work that you do with the business of food, maybe what I might ask is if you can give the guys just a quick sort of background on what it is that you do, and if you're able to maybe just share with us some of the impact that this has had across that sort of food industry piece with what you focus on.
Yep, exactly. Hi everyone, I'm Jane from the business of food. I started out 12 years ago as a kitchen incubator called My Other Kitchen. And what we did was we serviced the part of the food industry that wanted to put their product into a packet and onto a retail shelf. Understanding that the kitchen was the biggest cost and compliance issue mostly to people even trying to start a food business in that area. And obviously, our main purpose was to raise the horrendously bad success rate of those kind of businesses. So we've dealt in a lot of different food products. And I think the one thing that I learnt over the years has been the reasons for their success or failure is never straightforward. And I think if you're in the food industry, you'll know that change is a constant. Maybe not so much in cafes and restaurants because your customers come to you and you've either got something really good that works or you don't, and it's really easy to tell early on, I believe. In finding but I think where the challenge is for those kind of businesses is actually knowing who's going to walk in the door and then being able to connect with them, as Clive puts it, and actually building that community without traditionally capturing their details. And I think that's one of the things that I've seen come to the forefront in this unusual, way of doing business, because a lot of cafes and restaurants actually don't know the people, don't know how to contact the people that are walking in the door. And I think that's where, Chris, you touched on very early, delivery options.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where they have the advantage over the business owner. And I think that will change. I think that's become very clear that data is king, and especially when you're trying to build that community, as Clive says.
Mm.
I think that's the biggest thing I've seen. Obviously, people are trying to think about how to bring money in the door at the moment. And I've had a lot of people, not a lot, but I've had a few inquiries going, how do I take this amazing Thai sauce that I make and put it into a packet and get it to my customers in a different way? I think there's a big argument for actually pausing before you pivot and try not panic, because it's a whole nother way of doing business. It has its own costs and its own risks. And as much as you think you might have all the components, the kitchen, the staff, there is more to think about than just putting it into a packet and selling it.
Absolutely. It would have been a very good segue there into James if he was online. I'm going to double check if James is online by any chance. No. Okay. He's obviously, unfortunately, been caught up. Look, for those, and James may jump on later, but James is in marketing for restaurants and is obviously sort of closely involved with a lot of the industry right now in helping them explore options available to them for delivery service. I think one of the biggest problems right now has been that the industry has automatically turned to the likes of Uber Eats and Deliveroo. But there's two very big problems inside of that. One is the level of ownership that you don't have over the customer. They actually own the customer, and effectively you're just a transaction piece for them. So it makes it very difficult, especially in times like this where you need to start building a loyalty base to not have that direct engagement with the customer themselves. And two is the other obvious one, the crippling fees associated with that. With the downturn in business, but then you pile on top of that any existing business that you're doing, you're also potentially losing anywhere between 30 to 40%. It can have a really bad knock-on effect to all the things that you're doing within the business. So it hasn't quite been the salvation that people had hoped for. I think one of the other points that James was making too is that he's seeing an uptrend in people wanting to do pickups. And there's probably a couple of reasons for that. One, in social isolation, any venture outside of the house becomes an excursion. Any venture outside of the house becomes an excursion. So I think, you bundle up the kids in the car and, no more than one kid, but, take them out to get dinner and get some fresh air. But two, there is an appreciation there from the community. We're finding in the closer communities that restaurants are losing money from these delivery services. So by buying direct, you're sort of finding that opportunity there. So one of the things that James has done is actually launched a software platform called Follow, which is actually a free restaurant online ordering system. And it's actually available to anyone within the restaurant and hospitality industry to jump on board, set up an account, and give you the ability to be able to then start going out and selling online with a pickup service that sits in behind that. So if James doesn't jump on board, I'll explain in more detail what that's about. But what I might do, because there was a lot of ideas to cover off on, I might just jump into the presentation and sort of go through, I guess, some of the little things that you can be doing right now that might make an impact on your business. One of the things that I will ask, there is a chat, so I'm going to assume that most of you by now are fairly savvy with Zoom. But for those who aren't aware, there is the chat option. And if you've got any questions along the way, and if it's specific for Jane or Clive, please just pop their name in and then your question there. If it's a general question, just jump into the chat, and then we'll visit that as we get towards the end. So if I can do a share screen. Now, can I just get a nod from everyone if they can see that okay? Yep, terrific. Okay. And you can still hear me okay as well? Fantastic. The cleaners have just come through with the vacuum cleaners. So I've had to relocate to the sanctuary here with the rainforest background. Okay, so I guess there's a few things here, and these are really captured by 7 key headlines. And I've got no doubt that you've probably given thought to all of these. And I'm certainly not under any misconception that these are all going to be new ideas to you. But I thought they were worth visiting as sort of something that's part of your toolkit and arsenal. And keeping in mind too, not all of these are specific just to the restaurant industry or food industry. There's sort of general practices that you can apply in order to be able to actually position yourself well on the market. But first and foremost is promotion, and letting your customers know that you're still open is key. Touching on Clive's story before, that was a big part of going out and letting people know, hey, we're still here, we're still serving food, and we'd love if you can come along. And the stories that I've heard like that have been countless, where something as simple as actually reaching back out to your community and letting them know that you're still open, that you're still trading, that you're still working, can go a long way. If it is a physical bricks and mortar store, you used to be able to drive down the street and gauge whether something was open by the cars out the front. That's obviously not the case anymore. So think of maybe doing an A-frame or something that sort of shows that you're open. And if you're on socials, now's the time to be going out, taking pictures of your food, taking pictures of what you're doing and posting it online regularly. just to let people know that you're still there. I've got here price versus options, and the tendency is in a market when it gets aggressive is to start to look at price and what you can do there. Again, what we're finding as a trend that's coming through is that price isn't the only considering factor when people are looking at sort of what to order. You know, there's flexibility there on ordering. So consider, you know, what options you've got there in regards to delivery and pickup, and really making sure that you're flexible with the consumers right now, and not necessarily focused on price, but just making sure that you're available to them, and giving them the flexibility underneath that. Telling your story, I think, is a big one, and a lot of people miss that or forget that along the way. That, you know, telling your story is paramount to any brand engagement, and in anything that you do in business. But certainly when you're talking about a competitive landscape of food, your story piece needs to be there. It needs to be real and authentic and resonate with the customer. You know, a lot of cases, you know, Desi, we were chatting before, and the conversations we had in the past, you know, but I love the backstory behind the work that you're doing with Green Whisk. You know, it's that backstory that actually gets you to buy into, you know, what it is that you're doing. Otherwise, you're simply another product that's competing on the shelf with everyone else. So every opportunity that you have to be able to get your story across, be it through socials or be it through community outreach, should be paramount to the focus of what you're doing right now. And then becoming part of the community DNA. This is an interesting time that we're all kind of realizing that we're in this together, and that community connection and bond, with that universal lens around, you know, each of us in our own little world are fighting together this virus. There's something very bonding about that, and what that's reflecting is then the community DNA. And if you can exist within that community DNA and actually foster relationships locally, again, you're going to be better positioned for people understanding and resonating with your brand. The offering of family meals, I think, is an interesting trend that we've seen sort of crop through in the States, and meal kits for cooking at home. I was giving the guys the example before that there's a few companies that have cropped up in the US, and I've seen a few here in Australia as well, where they've still got their supply chain locked in place. They've been known as a restaurant for good quality ingredients and good quality delivery of food, but the significant downturn has forced them to think differently. So they're now offering the ability for people to be able to actually order all the ingredients, have it delivered out to the home, and then they run online workshops where they actually show people how they cook this food in the kitchen. Their loyal customers who have eaten there for years are buying into that. I think what's interesting is that they're also pretty sure that they say customers will be coming back in once they realise how hard it is to cook the food and to make it themselves at home. But I think it's brilliant just to kind of think differently of maintaining your supply chain, looking after your loyal customers, and you know, providing something a little bit differently. And in terms of family meals, this is more of a local thing, but certainly when you're talking about the Cardinia region, this is a big family area. So when you're talking about takeaway, really, we've seen the trend come through into your chain stores. McDonald's have the family box, and KFC have the family meals. Or Hungry Jack's has jumped on board, or everyone's got these little sort of family meal options. But there's a reason for that, and the trend is going there because families tend to order meals and order them through. So they're after something more of a bundle buy than just single individual items. Free delivery is, we'll touch on it in a moment when you talk about repurposing resources. But free delivery is something that you may want to look at. So rather than discounting what you're doing, consider maybe repurposing some of your front of house staff into jumping in cars and actually offering free delivery and still getting the food out there. It's not sustainable in the long term, but it may actually attract customers through, because if you're offering good quality food with engagement with the customer, with a free delivery service that you're managing with a smiling face from the restaurant, you're actually more likely to win people on board. And again, you know the customer, you own the customer, and every touch point is managed by you. So there's more opportunity in that than with Uber Eats. And is there an opportunity for bolt-ons? And again, I'll sort of revisit it a little bit later on, but who would have thought that you could go to the drive-through at Macca's and buy milk and bread? They've seen that as an opportunity, that people now are grabbing food on the way home. Let's offer the staples and sell it to them at the same time. So not suggesting that all of you should get into selling milk and bread as a bolt-on to what you're doing, but use that as an example to thinking creatively around the things that you can maybe bring into your business and bolt on as a solution, and then promoting that out as well. This is the reality of the world that we live in now, food safety and hygiene. And there's two parts to this. One, there's obviously some responsibilities that are there on your side as somebody within the food industry. But then there's also, I think, an opportunity to see how this is going to impact consumer buying decision moving forward. These terms now being thrown around of no touch and frictionless. I noticed Domino's now have done a national campaign on the fact that they run it through their 275-degree oven straight out into your door with no human contact. And keep in mind, they've got a very expensive marketing team that sits behind them that's kind of arrived at the fact that, hey, people want to know that there's minimal human contact here. So I think you can take a cue from that to say that this trend around no touch and frictionless is going to carry over even beyond the restrictions. We know the restrictions are going to end, but we do also know that this virus is not just going to be switched off overnight. So the lingering idea that this could reflame back up is going to encourage people to actually consider what that no touch and frictionless supply chain looks like. And this is in every aspect of raw ingredients right the way through to restaurant, and then restaurant right the way through to the customer. So consider what they mean for your business and how you can maybe leverage those as part of your messaging out to market. Dedicate zones for safe pickup. It should be an obvious one by now. Bunnings, Coles, Woolworths, they got out the electrical tape and made the big X's on the floor and said, here is where you stand. But I still walk into takeaway outlets and find that everyone's just congregating around the counter. Taking the initiative there to actually have dedicated zones for safe pickup will actually comfort your customers when they're walking in. They can see that right from front of house to back of house, you're thinking about the safety first and hygiene first all the way through. So think of what that looks like if you've got a bricks and mortar setup. Again, goes without saying, but implement a robust hygiene practice, but also promote this out to your customers. If you haven't put that in place, that needs to be put in now. Make it obvious to your customers that you're taking these steps along the way, because it just gives them that comfort to know that you're taking it seriously as they are taking it. Self-serve anything will become a safety issue, so I don't know whether there's anyone who has anything that's self-serve, but consider that that's going to start to be mandated and regulated. It's kind of a no-go zone at the moment, and it's going to be a petri dish for disease as we move forward. So anything self-serve is going to be difficult. But yeah, we'll touch on what that means from ordering and in-store ordering in a moment. Remain dedicated to sick employee protocols. Keep an eye on your staff. Again, this is a virus. The reason why we're going backwards as an economy is not because we decided to, or politicians are making bad decisions. This is happening because this is dangerous and people are dying. If your staff are sick, if you are sick, take it seriously. Implement a policy. Keep an open communication there with your staff so that they're letting you know if something's wrong, and make sure that you're kind of putting those practices in place. Tamper-free packaging is, again, another trend that we're seeing pop up now over the last few weeks. And it's interesting that if you'd asked me 6 months ago, and Jane would certainly be testament to this, that sustainable packaging was almost a minimum now going out to market, that you needed to have something green about what you were doing. In most cases, it was seen to be green. So, hey, look, I'm doing the right thing and looking after the environment. But if you're not thinking sustainability with your packaging, you really were finding it hard to compete with others. I think what we're going to find now moving forward is tamper-free packaging is going to be a huge one. Again, if you can show your integrity of supply all the way through, right the way through to tamper-free package delivery to a consumer, following the cues of the big guys. Uber Eats have done it with that simple sticker on top to let you know, hey, it's okay, nobody's been digging around in your food. But offering tamper-free packaging is just showing that supply chain consistency, and promote the use of cashless transactions where possible. Again, putting up a little sign encouraging the ability to be able to do that. Restaurant industry is generally, cash preferred for many reasons that sit behind that. But now is not a time to be exchanging that, if possible, moving to cashless transactions. Just going to pause for a moment. I have seen a few questions pop up in the chat, but is there any sort of immediate questions that anyone wanted to jump into straight away?
There was a question from Lisa before about Macca's selling the bread and milk and things like that. If I can just quickly jump in there. Hi, Lisa. So with that sort of thing, so basically she said, how are my clients handling it? Are they doing a similar thing? Are they selling the milk and bread as well? So in this situation, I think, so if you are a food trader and you have a food business, I think you need to be careful if you're thinking about doing something like that. Obviously, your business, may have a reputation already. And if you do have an established reputation and you are known for, serving a particular type of food, or basically a brand identity that people identify with, then you need to be very careful with introducing, new additions like toilet paper or bread or milk or whatever it might be, because that could, during this period, you might make a few extra dollars and things like that. But I think in the long run, from a brand perspective and identity perspective, I think it's wise to just stay true to your brand, stick with what you're doing. Always, Chris, you touched on it before about adapting. Yes, definitely allow yourself, the flexibility to adapt and to transition, with the current times and things like that, and the climate, but always remember what your brand is and what you do and what people know your business to be and how they recognize your business. So yeah, just be careful with that. Don't stray too far away from what your brand actually is.
Well said, Clive. And I think that comes back to that story piece before, that at the very least, what I'd suggest to you, I always talk about pillow time, but when this ends and you put your head on your pillow tonight, put all your other thoughts out and just purely think, what is my story? What is the story behind what I do? And think of that, put a narrative behind it, and write it down and start to work out how much of that is resonating with my customers, and how much of that can I get through in all these things that I do as a business. And then you will know whether you're true to that with the bolt-ons that we referred to before. I'd question the strategy behind milk and bread at Macca's, as far as the connection between the brand, but kind of clever in the way that they're now reaching out to families, specifically with that idea of, okay, stop past, get what you need, and grab Macca's at the same time. So it does kind of work for them, but you've got to be careful. You don't want to deviate too much. Just touching on this slide that I've got at the moment, operational efficiency. Got one of the points at the top, take advantage of the JobKeeper stimulus to retain staff. I'm going to hope by now that those who think that they might be able to qualify for the JobKeeper have looked into it and applied for it, if it fits where they're at. It is I'm trying to think of the right word, and I'm probably going to cross the line a little bit by saying it's a clusterfuck. Trying to work your way through the stimulus that's available out there, and to go into that in full detail tonight would be a little bit difficult. Again, if you haven't explored this but you think it might be an option in order to retain staff, I encourage you to reach out afterwards, and we can explore that together. But yeah, take advantage of the fact that you can actually retain staff with that JobKeeper side. And then once you've retained them, if you do have that downturn of business, but you can keep staff, then look at how you can repurpose those staff. So I mentioned like delivery services before. Operational efficiency, considering a back to basics and core menu. I feel like Gordon Ramsay here, but sort of jumping into a restaurant and saying you've got too many items on the menu. But again, now's not the time to be expanding the menu. If you really want to, to capture attention, you want it to be on a few key dishes that you do right. So a back to basics approach may actually allow you, from an operational efficiency point of view, to cut down the amount of range, but still be able to maintain that 80-20 rule. Now, if 80% of your sales are coming from, the 20% of the menu, then the other 80% is not going to have a massive impact on your business. Apply the 80-20 rule to looking at your menu.
Chris, do you mind if I jump in?
No, go for it, yeah.
So recently I worked with one of our traders. They run like an Afghan cuisine based restaurant, and so they've got a multitude of different food options on their menu. They've got lamb, they've got chicken, they've got this, they've got that, they got all sorts of different things. So with the current climate, obviously, they don't have the foot traffic. They don't have people coming in all day, every day, just to buy, little bits and pieces, to buy some chips and to buy one of this and one of that. Now the ordering, I guess, culture has changed. So now people, as I said, the people aren't coming in all the time. People aren't ordering like individual items. Now people are ordering, like Chris is saying, in bulk, like the family packs and things like that. So streamlining your menu during this current time is definitely a wise decision. And then another step that I took above that is think about, what are the most popular things on your menu? What are the things that sell most often? And then break that down again, and then work out what things, because now a lot of the wholesalers and suppliers and things like that are putting their prices up. Okay, so now we're seeing big jumps in terms of, let's just say, lamb and other sorts of, fresh produce and things. Some are going up more than others. So if you can kind of divvy up what items on your menu are the most popular, and then kind of break that down and work out where you can make the biggest margins on certain, items or dishes or whatever, you'll be able to kind of save money and make more money by actually just streamlining and including those individual things. But then, as I said, bundle them all together into like a family pack or whatever it might be. I think you'll find that will pay dividend in the end.
Good point, Clive. Sorry, Jane. Yeah.
Yeah, Chris. One thing we've seen in our area is that cafes have obviously been left with a very large supply of coffee, or the UHT milk that they buy in bulk, and we've seen a lot of them actually put those 1 kilo bags of coffee beans or UHT milks out for sale. It is actually in line with their core business, kind of, sort of, because it's in their interest to rotate that stock, because they could keep it for 6 months, but none of us really want to drink a cup of coffee made with 6-month-old beans, right? Mm-hmm. So it actually adds to both their cash revenue coming in, but also keeps their stock fresh, because they can still get those things. It's just that they have a lot that's not walking out the door in coffee cups at the moment.
Love it. Yeah, it makes complete sense, and it is, I guess, one of those things when you hear it presented like that as an idea, you think, oh, that's so obvious, yeah. But you've got to appreciate the thought process that's gone in behind that. To kind of look at where can I find efficiencies, where are my alternative markets, what fitting all those pieces in together just requires a bit of thought, but great example, yeah. The other point that I've got on here is being able to explore flexible use ingredients. And this is almost to Clive's point, but looking at your dishes, ideally, every one of you, if asked the question, should know what your hero dish is or what your hero product is. So you may have a number of different SKUs, but if I was to say to you, what is your hero product or your hero dish, you should be able to answer that question. I'd say start there. Look at the ingredients that are in that dish, and then how you can maybe utilize some of those ingredients across sister dishes that sit within that that approach. So looking at flexible agreements, buying in bulk, using them across multiple dishes. I'm not from the restaurant industry, so I don't sort of want to pretend that's an easy thing to do or take away your creative flair around dishes, but there's certainly efficiencies. These are all the common business things that we look at, when we're looking at things like cash flow management. Using the downtime to upskill employees and multitask. Now's a great time to actually look at ensuring that the staff have got the ability to be able to move into other areas of the business. And we'll touch on that when we get to team in a moment. But certainly from an operational efficiency point of view, where you can upskill your staff in a quiet moment will reward you back in spades later on. Consider investing in practical and safe packaging, coming back to that point of hygiene and that trend and concern that will resonate with consumers. Again, now is a time to look at it. And remember too that from a food point of view, people are craving comfort food right now. So these are the foods that kind of people are gravitating to. I apologise if we have anyone online who is a restaurant kind of serving up the, I can't even think of his name, that was it, Neil, you might know his name. Is Clive, Neil, what's his name? That chef, Neil Perry, yeah. With your little sort of boutique foods, which will look more like a painting. But the reality is, people right now are buying comfort food, and so don't underestimate what that means from the point of view of appeal. Pick something in there that you kind of feel would be a good comfort food side. Take a good picture of it, get it onto socials, start promoting it online. Ask your friends to do the same thing. Focus on those kind of things that right now will get a high level of engagement. Okay. Leveraging new technology. Again, this is a whole area that we're probably going to address in another chat. But I just wanted to have a couple of points here that home delivery of apps is not your only resource. Coming back on that point before that James would have made, but Uber Eats and Deliveroo is not your safety net. It is one way, yes, but it's something that could actually come back and bite you in the bum later on. So, is the sting in the tail really worth you not putting in that time? To consider reaching out to the community and exploring the option to pick up, sharing a message with them, but that that it will benefit them, offer them more at that store level than simply handing that money over. So leveraging new technology, that first point is more be aware of some of the most accessible technology because it hasn't been built for you. It's been built for them. So they have, with all their best interests in mind, it's not the restaurants, it's not the drivers, and it's not even the consumers, it's them as a company clipping the ticket along the way. So that's what the software does successfully. So consider some of the other software platforms that are available. And again, we can include some of those links on the follow-up and feedback to this. I've got here, be ready for self-serve ordering terminals. I just thought this was a really interesting story. And I'm going to keep this to 60 seconds or less to not hijack it too much. But I was, as most of you would know, I'm normally involved in the startup side of things and working with entrepreneurs locally. So I follow a lot of startup companies both here and overseas. There's this great company overseas that's actually been working on customer profiling and building out this entire back-end platform that is designed to integrate through into ordering platforms, so that if you've got dietary requirements or favorite dishes, etc., that it actually profiles all that and then stores it across different mediums. So they were apparently in conversations with McDonald's for their touchscreen kiosks to build in facial recognition so that when you walked into a McDonald's, it would actually know who you were, and it would throw up a suggested menu on screen. That fell through. So what they've done, pivoting just like everyone else, is they're now proposing a $50 small kiosk for smaller restaurants and cafes that actually builds in this face tracking software and loyalty club membership and the like, that people can walk in and it instantly knows the customer. So it's an area not right now that you're going to jump out and do, but I'd say worth considering what impact that has on your business. And again, what you need to be capturing today to prepare for new technologies as they come through. All of that assumes that you know your customer and have an ability to engage with your customer. So start thinking customer first, strategy first, and technology will fit onto that beautifully. Explore the use of health tracking software. So I did jump into the questions very quickly when Clive was talking before, and I believe there was a question just in regards to the app that the government's released with the COVID tracking side. And if and when, I will say when we get up to the 40% of the population on that, just for your own knowledge, I'm in tech and I've downloaded it myself, and I've faced the reality that I give more information to Facebook and Google and everyone else willingly. So I've really got nothing to worry about with the Bluetooth tracking system that'll tell me if I've been in touch with a potentially deadly virus. But yeah, the health tracking software, I believe, is going to be extended further than what it is right now. So I think initially it is for the public in order to be able to ease restrictions. Once we start getting into a more regulated and mandated market, which is going to impact restaurants, the opportunity to bring in health tracking is going to be inevitable. So start to just explore what that looks like with your staff and with your customers and your restaurant side. Also too, with order tracking, that'll probably evolve into more sort of sanity and supply chain tracking. So again, you know, Jane, I might maybe just throw this as a question / observation from yourself, but have you seen that sort of supply chain, paddock to plate, you know, that sort of idea come through in that food industry piece?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. A lot in conjunction with blockchain, obviously, because that actually, at every point through the distribution chain, then it becomes very clear who has handled it. Not just that it's gone through there at some point, but who has handled it, who's signed it off, you know, and who's had access to it.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely think there's going to be a lot more of that as we move forward. All of those points that I had at the top are something that we'll take a deep dive in on a think tank. And anyone who wants to be involved in that conversation, I love these chats. Let's pull out the crystal ball and talk technology and see where it's all going. This is probably not the medium to do it, but I'd love for any of you interested in having that chat to get involved. The very final one on here, though, is something, again, you can do immediately. So after you put your head on the pillow tonight, thought about your story, got a narrative together, and you kind of nailed that, then wake up tomorrow morning and grab your coffee and tea and just ask yourself the simple question of, do I exist online? And if the answer to that is not a affirmative yes, then the chances are it's a big no. And I say that because having a strategy there around socials and website, the amount of people that I speak to, and certainly speaking to more and more restaurants now, who say, yeah, I'm online, I've got a Facebook page, and then nothing that sits behind that at all. That's not having an online presence. You know, Facebook is a great medium to reach out to people and to use for that opportunity for marketing. But if you really want to get true engagement, you need to have a website that sits in underneath that, you know, with some sort of substance, you know, loyalty, and the like that can be built through. It's a whole area of digital literacy. I touched on the point to say, look at it, consider it, come up with an idea, work out where your customers live, how you're going to reach them through a social strategy. If the website does it reflect your true brand, does it feel like I'm entering into your store when I go onto the website? Just ask yourself those questions now. And then, yeah, you can deep dive into a digital literacy course or a chat with us at any point if you wanted to go into nitty-gritty strategy on that side. But even if we have time, I'm happy to discuss that a bit further later on. Focus on your employees is coming back to that JobKeeper one that I mentioned before. So what we've got to recognise is, as business owners, we tend to react in the best interests of us and the business, rightfully so. If you're not doing it, nobody else is. So you need to think along those lines. But if you're a business owner that has staff, you need to respect the fact that their head is spinning right now. Looking at it, they're asking the questions of, well, are we going to be able to do enough business to sustain my job? Where is this all going to go? Should I be thinking about something else? So even if you had the most loyal staff only a couple of weeks ago, there's some inevitable doubts that are going through their head right now of, should they be upskilling in another industry? Should they be considering something else? And if you've got good staff that you've spent years or months or even just a significant amount of time bringing into the business, it's worth looking after them before considering that there's more fish in the sea. Because they already know your systems, they already know your business. So you really want to keep a focus on the employees. Try and nurture team culture, working through the tough times. Things are easier together. But in order to do that, you've got to be transparent and open in your communications. Speaking with your staff honestly, and this also extends to suppliers, to rental agreements, to all the stakeholders who are important to your business. Have open and transparent conversations to them. Let them know where you're at. Let them know what your intent is moving forward. Indicate to them that you've got a plan, if you've got a plan. Don't make that up. Actually give it the time to come up with a plan and share that with other people so that you get their buy-in as well. It's always easier to tackle these things together rather than alone. Consider the mental health of your staff. There's a whole bunch of resources available, free resources available, but in terms of your responsibility, just keep an eye on them. Again, we're all going through different things. The numbers at Beyond Blue have gone up by 40% over the last fortnight alone. That should give you an understanding that there's a lot of people being impacted by this. So the front line is going to be you. And keep an eye on your staff and really just keep that in mind of potential signs for depression and anxiety, and just general fear that's going to impact their performance at work, that could lead on to something else. Again, it's another coffee. I'm suggesting lots of coffees here, but make this then now your lunchtime one tomorrow afternoon. Jump on Beyond Blue, and just over a 5-10 minute coffee, just read what I can do as an employer. They've got a great section on there that actually just talks about watching out for the warning signs, etc. And they're great tips as well. I've actually used those with my kids and family too. So yeah, just keep that in mind. It's your responsibility to maintain a safe work environment, engage the staff on that, but make a plan now, again, planning for the regulation that's going to come through. Yeah, maintain that safe work environment now. Explore opportunity for job sharing. This isn't going to be for everyone, but we have seen a few successful examples of this, that if you can find people within the similar field who aren't competitors, and you've got good staff, consider the option of job sharing, and discuss this with your staff. But it may be a way. There's an organisation that's been set up recently that is actually allowing employers to jump on who are retaining staff through JobKeeper to list their employees on there because they've retained them but they don't need to use them. So other companies can jump on and actually utilise their skills, and it's all covered under JobKeeper. So it actually means that these people are still employed, but they can actually work in other fields if you don't have direct work for it. You can run your own closed version of that kind of agreement. If you know people who have got staff who are on board, maybe look at the opportunity there for job sharing. That will strengthen your community connection, strengthen collaboration between businesses, which you'll be able to carry into the new world on the other side of this, this survive stage. And final point there being team building through community outreach. So one example of that would be what Clive gave before, when he sort of talked about tapping in on the community, getting them together and sort of rallying behind supporting the guys. But another one would be to consider some of these other great stories we're hearing about being able to give back to the disadvantaged communities, the homeless communities. Are there ways that you can actually have an impact as a social impact or a social enterprise element to what you're doing as a business, and then collectively get the team involved in that? I think the best way to forget about your own problems is to realise that there's bigger problems in the world. So apply that lens. Look around at your most immediate community and see whether there's an opportunity that you can help within what you're doing as a business, and then engage your staff in that plan. I think ultimately, again, you'll find that it strengthens that connection as a team, and your community story will shine through. We'll have a better opportunity to really tap in to these people that are going to be valuable to you later on as well. Just before I jump on the other one, Clive, I should have asked this at the start, but are you able to just keep an eye on the Q&A, and if there's anything that you think should be answered earlier, jump in quickly?
Sure.
Yep. So only a couple more slides to go, and then we can just sort of have a general chat. But have the point here around finding new streams of revenue, and we discussed that before with the milk and bread side, but exploring, these are just a couple of ideas, but exploring limited menu options at different times of the day. There's still some restaurants out there that are only opening during peak hours, forgetting the fact that there is no such thing as peak hour anymore. When people are working from home, it's not a traditional, I finish at 5, on my way home I get takeaway food. So consider the new world that we're living in right now, and explore, is there an option for maybe limited menu options at a different time of day? I've got a new term here, which I'll put money on the fact that you're probably going to hear it more, but consider a hybrid ghost kitchen. And for those of you who haven't heard of the ghost kitchen trend, basically it is kitchens without a front of house staff. In fact, without tables, chairs. It is in fact just a kitchen that lives as an identity on something like Uber Eats and Deliveroo. And they make food and they deliver food through that service. It's an interesting topic for debate around the threat to industry. How can I maintain the costs of staff and restaurant with things like ghost kitchens? But in a market like we've got now, where you may have kept staff with JobKeeper, you're not quite as busy at front of house, maybe look at what a hybrid ghost kitchen option looks like. Maybe bring in a part of that into your business. And even explore that if you're selling products, food products, that you may have looked at channels like fast-moving consumer goods, online sales, etc. Some of these have snuck through into not so much Uber Eats, but some of the other delivery platforms. So you might want to look at that, because there's a whole bunch more people sitting on there. And Desi, I think again, sorry to use you as the default example in some of these, but with Green Whisk, with some of the products that you've got, there might be opportunities there to sit within some of these online delivery networks to actually provide dessert, as an alternative channel to be able to utilise. But for restaurants, the hybrid ghost kitchen option is something to consider. Is there an opportunity for meal plans and/or subscriptions? There's some people going out there selling vouchers that people can claim later to come into the restaurant and eat. Hit and miss success with that. I've seen probably more success with subscription-based services, where you kind of pay something on a monthly basis. People are used to that now with Netflix and Spotify and all these various little amounts that come out of their account. Is there something there, if you've got an existing loyal customer base, that you could reach out to and say, hey, we're setting up a subscription service. We can deliver out this, for $25 a week, or whatever that amount is. We'll regularly deliver out this every Thursday. Just consider maybe some other ideas there for revenue within that subscription plan. Online cooking classes, I gave that example before. sort of engaging people through on a different level of just cooking food for them, but actually getting them to understand the process behind cooking food and still being able to supply ingredients and do that side. Remembering that that it is more than simply expanding the menu. Yeah, so the default thing when you're talking about cash flow is either decrease expenses, increase incoming. And so the tendency there is to say, well, if I can't increase incoming, I'll decrease the outgoings. And yes, you need to look at that. But if you think that you're going to increase incoming by just simply expanding the menu, the reality is you're still dealing with the same amount of customers unless it's part of another strategy that's actually engaging with more. So don't simply expand the menu thinking that it's going to actually make a difference on the amount of revenue that you're getting through. But there are ways to do that cleverly and successfully. And the final point there, just before we jump to some of the questions, getting a tighter financial management of where you're at. I'm just going to jump straight to the base point there and then just jump back up to some of the others. But I'm referring to it really as, in entrepreneur startup land, we talk about minimum viable product. Right now, you need to be thinking minimum viable business. So what is my financial position? And we're already a couple of weeks into this now, so I'm hoping that most of you have kind of done those sums. At the very least, maybe you've done those inside of Excel, if not Xero or Myob or some sort of mapping tool where you can see and visually kind of read through that and understand your fixed, your variables, what you can have an impact, what you can't have an impact on, but really looking at that and taking stock on that. Once you've got your head wrapped around the financial side, having a tighter control on those are then the little things that you can do within your business. So we touched on upskilling employees, but that will ultimately reduce your staff overheads in the long term as we start to ease into a new normal. Calculating your cost per square metre return. And again, Clive, you probably be testament to this, going out to some of these restaurants and takeaway places. They actually have no idea what their cost per square metre would be. So if you're in a bricks and mortar store and you've got this massive amount of space that's not being utilised, can you repurpose that space? And I think of great examples of that.
Especially if you're paying for it.
What's that?
Especially if you're paying for it.
Well, exactly, yeah. And Clive, we were talking a couple of months back actually, but what's the place in Daniel? Is it the Pavilion that's got the burger place at the back?
Yeah. And the car wash too.
What's that?
And the car wash as well.
And the car wash as well, yeah. So it's a great example. I mean, you've got
all owned by the same person, yeah.
Yeah. So you want to just maybe explain that, Clive, just so...
I'm not sure if anyone's familiar with the Pavilion restaurant on Princess Highway in Dandenong, opposite the Dandenong High School. So very popular restaurant, great food, great service, great reputation, big car park. So instead of just, focusing on creating a revenue from the restaurant, they've actually, taken a step back and looked at kind of what the real estate that they've got and how they can actually, capitalize on real estate. So they then went ahead, they built a car wash that they obviously get revenue from. And then when the restaurant is actually closed, the burger shop out the back. So they've got like a little backyard in the car park, burger shop, obviously all above board, that's open all the way through to like 3 or 4 in the morning. So they've pretty much covered all the bases. So yeah, pretty smart, very good business.
It's brilliant. I mean, again, for a traditional bistro, type place to take that sort of approach, I think is brilliant. I've got a note in here about preparing for negotiations with your landlord. So again, I'm assuming behind this that if you are paying rent, that you're aware of the rent. I can't think of the word I'm looking for. The policy that the government's put in place in regards to how the landlords need to be looking after you. A lot of people, again, have found that it's sort of hit and miss with those discussions. The one thing I will say is putting that aside, which we can deep dive into specifically if you want, but putting that aside for a moment, I'd say prepare yourself for negotiations with your landlord if you've got somewhere that you're renting right now. It's going to be an interesting time as we move out of this with people valuing long-term relationships a lot more. So if you go back to your landlord with a strategy around how you've got through it and what you're planning on doing, showing that you've got every good intent to stay there, I think they're going to be acutely aware of the fact that it's going to be a very difficult market to release that across to anyone else. So saying about preparing for negotiations, the effort that you put in now, try and document that so that you can then get it into a story that you can share across with stakeholders to negotiate a better position. Maximize free and accessible advertising. This is Facebook. This is Instagram. This is, again, working with your community on different events. There's a whole bunch of things that you don't need to look at your marketing expenses and say, oh, well, I have to cut back on those. There is so much that you can do that is both free and accessible. And if you wanted to explore those together, I'm happy to chat about those. I know Clive can share some insight, on that too, having built a successful sort of, online community through Facebook. But there's so much you can do there. Don't undervalue the reach that you've got through those networks. Menu consolidation will reduce wastage. It was more of a point in there just to kind of, again, look at every aspect of your business. Something like wastage might only be 8 to 10% of the overall cost of your business, but right now 8 to 10% is a significant impact on the business. So every little bit counts of what you can look at. So Clive, maybe if I can just ask for some help on that. Can you see the questions okay that have come up?
Just the same screen.
Chat? Yep.
Yeah.
I don't think there's been any questions, Chris, but James is online. Do you know that?
I just noticed that. James, are you there? James was online?
Was online.
He was, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe not anymore.
Manage participants. James Eling, he's there.
Maybe he's on mute. Is he on mute? No.
No, he's not off mute. Are you there, James? James just dropped off. Okay. We'll keep an eye out for him if he comes back. Okay.
I think it's more chat than questions.
Yep. Fantastic. So Lisa just gave an example. My local cafe has gone from 6 till 4 in March, then 6. Is that time or?
Yeah, I think it is. Yes, till 6 to 11. Is that correct?
So 16 is 4 p.m. Yeah, and then 6 to 4 during April, and now 6 to 11.
Yeah.
In order to conserve the energy of staff. Yeah, and condense kitchen operation time. Yeah, yeah. So I think I haven't visited military time for a while, so I have to think about that. And I think great. Again, great example of just looking at your business and understanding the business, understanding where the times are to operate, and I'd say play around with that as well. Again, there is no. It's a different world at the moment, so you may just find that times that traditionally didn't work for you before, or even methods of go to market that didn't work for you before, may actually work now with more attentive audience and different habits at play. Okay.
Can I throw something in the mix?
Yeah.
So something that I want to say. So obviously we've got this COVID downtime. So I think why don't we try and turn like this unprecedented, negative, slightly sad situation into a positive situation and an opportunity as well. You were kind of speaking about, sorry, I just got someone calling me. you were kind of speaking about, the upskilling before and repurposing of employees. So if you do have current staff and employees and things like that, that you don't see use for at this current time because you're not as busy, there aren't as many people coming into your business, sitting down, eating, having a coffee, whatever it might be. Those employees or staff, they don't need to wait on these customers. Think about, have a chat to them and think about how you can repurpose and how you can possibly utilize them in a more advanced way if they have the capabilities. If they don't have the capabilities, I mean, they can always learn. So you don't necessarily need to tell them to just stay home and then just sit around, I guess, and wait for the customers to come knocking, or just wait for the whole COVID situation to be over. Maybe act now and start to maybe implement some strategies. So what I'm kind of saying, the point of what I'm saying is you need to be building your community engagement online. You really need to be getting your business online. You need to be relating with people that are living online at the moment. Everyone is living online at the moment, and let's face it, everyone is bored pretty much. A lot of people have more than enough time on their hands. So, people want to engage and people want to interact. So give them some content, let them know what you're doing, give them the updates. And if you can do that via some of your existing employees or staff, even if they don't necessarily have the skills, they can quickly learn. It's not too hard just to cover the bases. So even if that's just in the way of making sure that you've got enough Facebook content, every item of your menu is online, and that you're basically just covering all the updates. I think that could be very, very beneficial instead of just, kind of thinking, oh, well, let's just, we've always run things the traditional way and the traditional sense. Let's just keep it that way. As we said before, it's time to almost shapeshift, to adapt, and to if you were lacking at all in terms of your digital presence online, now is the perfect time to capitalize on that and to actually sharpen up on some of those things and bring them up to scratch.
Yeah, I was actually reading this afternoon, and there was someone from the restaurant industry saying that 2019 was the biggest year on record for the collective sort of restaurant and food industry, and 2020 will now be the slowest year on record. We've literally gone from one extreme to another, completely unprecedented, and hopefully for some time. But I think that whole logic behind if it ain't broke, don't fix it. The reality is it's broke. So you need to fix it. So we had this sort of time last year where if you were able to be successful in business and get some wins, you were in a good market to do that. Now is the time that you need to get creative and you need to think differently on what you're doing. It can be intimidating to think of it like that. But I think, point there, and I'm going to get to the final points in a moment, but the point there being that you're not in this alone. So again, we're going to end this shortly with me giving you the details to get through to us. But I think, start there.
Hey, Chris, can you hear me now?
Are you there, James?
Hey, James.
I am, yes.
Right, James.
Fantastic.
So just one thing with that. Restaurant and Catering came out with some numbers. I don't really think the numbers are going to be overly accurate, but a truckload of restaurants are going to close. That's fundamentally a good thing. There was way too many restaurants before. The industry is constrained significantly by skills. So people haven't been able to get the great skills that they've needed. There's been far too many people who have been running shoddy operations just because they're not well capitalised. And we know that a lot of restaurants have closed and will never open again. And that means that the people who can either hibernate for long enough, and it's probably not going to be too much longer, or those that can do enough with their takeout business, they're going to come into a much, much, much better place because rents are going to be a lot cheaper. We know that because there's just going to be, across retail, there's going to be an absolute apocalypse as far as rental goes. There's going to be a lot of people, a lot of great people who have lost their jobs, which means that they're going to be looking. So the average skill set that you're going to have in your restaurant, it should be going up. And there's going to be the same number of diners. So once we get back to the new normal, I think it's going to be the restaurants that are around are going to see some fairly profitable, probably 18 months. Just because of the fact that it was a fundamentally unprofitable industry beforehand. Mm-hmm. A lot of the bottom 10, 20, 30, I think probably the bottom 30% of restaurants are gone or going.
Mm-hmm. It's the virus that we needed to have, yeah? The great leveler, the
shake-up.
Yeah, the shake-up. Hey, James, now it sounds like we've got you online and stable. Do you just want to introduce yourself to the guys, give them an idea on what you've been doing in the background over the last couple of weeks / months / years?
Yeah, so James from Marketing for Restaurants. We're a restaurant marketing company, as the name suggests. We've got customers all around the world. We produce the world's #1 restaurant marketing podcast, which is literally where we get all of our customers in the US and the UK. They download it, have a bit of a listen. We've got a couple of marketing ideas that we throw in there that, they seem to think are pretty successful. And, we pick them up as customers. We build restaurant websites, do marketing campaigns for restaurants. One of the big things that's just been completely nuts in the last 4 weeks is, as lead generation, we produce an online ordering system and a booking system which are free. We give them away. We built them for the customers who buy websites from us. We built them for them, and we include them in their packages. But as a sign of our commitment to the industry, we give them away free, which some people sort of struggle with, but yeah, we just sort of give it away for free because I think, realistically, when you look at the industry, look at all of the competitive pressure, and this is a global factor, it's not a high margin industry for most people. There's not too many Ferrari driving chefs running around there. So it's a really tough industry. We're passionate about it because it's the route to the middle class for a lot of immigrants, people who don't speak the language to whatever country they're going to. And they need that little bit of a help to be profitable and contribute to society. So, obviously, a lot of restaurants who haven't done either takeout or delivery have been forced to do it by governments around the world. And this is the thing. It's really interesting to see because there's little variations throughout the world. But from what we're seeing from our customers, pretty much there's very few restaurants where you can actually dine in. Sweden's obviously the one exception there. It's been really interesting to see restaurants that have gone from a standing start, no delivery, so no packaging, no menu thought, no delivery process, none of that sort of stuff. We did a case study on one of our customers who was doing an easy $10,000 a week. And so he was at $30,000 in his first 3 weeks. One of our other customers came on board and they've done $17,000 in a week in online ordering. And that's just through Frollo. So it doesn't include phone orders as well. Mm-hmm. So, there's been some fundamental changes in the market, which have been really, it's enabled a lot of restaurants to continue on, not only just continue on, but some of them are actually making good coin out of it. And this is one of the things that a lot of people don't sort of focus on. If you're using, the delivery aggregators, Uber Eats, Deliveroo, all of those guys, it's very hard to be profitable. So a question, what happens when the takeaway home food budget dries up? So the thing that we are seeing is definitely there's a lot of people who've lost their jobs. there's a lot of people who haven't lost their jobs. There's a lot of people whose businesses are booming. And for the people who've lost their jobs, then, you know, they're not going to be thinking about, you know, what can we eat? The trend that we are seeing is that some restaurants are getting people who are ordering 3 times a week. The other thing that I think is really amazing about this is that when you do food delivery, part of the product is laziness. So we get food delivered on a Friday night because I'm lazy. And I've probably had my first beer by the time the Indian food arrives. So I'm not really looking for pickup because I'm lazy. So it's convenience that I'm buying as a part of the transaction. Now what we're seeing is people are really willing to go out because it's the only opportunity that they're getting to go out of their house for the day. So there's a lot of people who are doing a huge number of pickup orders just because that's actually the highlight of the day, getting out of the house, going for a bit of a drive and picking up some food. I don't think, realistically, you need to be able to run your takeaway business for as long until the restrictions are eased. I don't think that that's going to be too far away, realistically. I think this is the happy time. We're actually going to get into a fairly unhappy time, I think, because when there's social distancing, I don't think they're going to say you can straight out, you know, open your restaurant up. I think they're going to keep the 1 person per 4 square meters, which is going to mean that a lot of restaurants are going to commit to an unprofitable business model. There'll be more people wanting to go out, but you're not going to be able to fill the place up. So you're going to have to be really careful about, yeah, exactly. So slow release back into normal seating. I think restaurants are only going to be half open, and then the landlord's going to say, well, now you're open, now I want some money. All of those sort of cost pressures are going to come back in. So I think that's actually going to be the difficult part. But now we're seeing a lot of people, and the big thing that I've been tracking is that if you go to news.com.au, then every day there's a new way to die, there's a new horror going on, there's all the bad news that's fit to print. There's no articles about, you know, restaurant sees increase in revenue because they're doing takeout and a whole heap of people are doing takeout. The other thing that we're seeing is that people are ordering a lot more. The average transaction size, you know, your average Thai restaurant that might be doing $40, $45, some of those guys, they're going to $60, $70 because people are stocking up. They're sick and tired of their baked beans that they're cooking. They're really keen to get some nice food and eat it over a couple of nights. So there's some really, really, really big opportunities there. And I think not a lot has come out in the media about how some restaurants are really doing a really good job of transforming themselves.
Love those insights. You dropped in right at the end there, James, and I think shared the valuable piece that I wanted at the start to frame all this. So just touching back very quickly on, you mentioned Follow before. So can you just maybe put in a quick plug for that so the guys understand what that's about?
Yeah, so it's a free restaurant online ordering system. There's a widget, you put your menu in, and it allows you to take orders online. Connects into Stripe. You see the money in a couple of days, and as the name suggests, it's completely free. No monthly fees, no per order fees. It feeds into one of the cool things that I think that we do, because at the heart of it, we're a data analytics company. One of the cool things that we do is a restaurant loyalty graph. So you can see how many of your customers have ordered twice, 3 times, 5 times, 10 times. It's got an inbuilt loyalty system. So if you turn that on, you might say, you know, order 9 times, get your 10th meal for free on us. When you turn that on, every customer will say, you know, thanks for ordering from us. It's your first order. You've only got 9 orders to go, and you've accrued a $10 loyalty credit. That goes up each time that they make that order, and you can see that the order frequency will compress because people are like thinking, wow, I've got a $50 loyalty credit. I've got to order 4 more times. People will start working towards that so that they can get that free meal. It's a great way of turning customers into repeat customers, and it's a great way of increasing customer loyalty. Now, so one of the online ordering companies, we don't need to mention names, but they've got a green logo. They used to have a loyalty feature in their app. They turned it off. They said it was because not many restaurants were using it. A large number of our customers use it with us. The issue was that they found that what they like to do is when a restaurant says, I'm struggling, they'll say, well, you know what, if we charge you more commission, we'll make sure that you get more orders. And that's the dynamic pricing model that they use. So there's some restaurants that are paying 13% commission and saying we don't get a lot of orders from them. There's some that are paying 20% commission, still doing the delivery, getting a truckload of orders, because Menulog makes more, oh, I wasn't going to mention names. Menulog get more money from them per order. They turned the loyalty discount off because they weren't able to move customers around from restaurant to restaurant. So it was costing them that high value, the high yielding commission. That's the power of the loyalty discount, the loyalty coupon. You know, this is your 6th order. You've only got 3 more to go, and you've accrued, you know, $58. People view that as money, and they will keep coming back so that they can get that free deal. And we had Indian last Friday night. We ordered $120 worth of stuff, and it cost us like $17 because it was our 10th or 9th order, whatever it was that they charge us. A really powerful way of locking those customers in, because the thing that you want to do, I think, is you want to build your business around those loyal customers, the ones who have it as their habit. If we aren't going out on a Friday night, we will have Indian. That's, you know, pretty much the law. 3 out of the 4 members of the family love Indian food, and 2 of them are the ones who vote, and they're the ones with the money. So me and my wife. So we have Indian every Friday night. We have spent thousands of dollars with our local Indian restaurant. When you've got 10, 20, 50, 100 of those customers, it's really quite easy to run a profitable restaurant. And that I think is what at the heart of it, making it easy for those customers to keep coming back. You can then, you know, it feeds into a little CRM system, which I describe as cheap and cheerful, but it means that you can send an email out to people who haven't ordered from you in the last 30 days. Hey, we'd love to see you back. Here's a new menu item. All of those, you know, pretty routine kind of marketing type things, you know, hey, you know, we're coming into winter, here's our new winter menu, or, you know, whatever it is that you want to do, it enables you to do that. And I think that's the big thing that we're seeing now, is that you've got to really be focusing on, you know, having those multiple channels out there. The loyalty coupon, I think that's the best part of it though, or the loyalty campaigns.
Love it. James, I'm glad you jumped on before the end just to recap.
I'm so sorry it was like at the end, yes. It's been a fun day.
Just quickly, Jane, Clive, James, I'm going to come back to you in a moment and just ask you the question, what's the one thing that I think you know, you could leave everyone with as just a final thought? I'm just going to quickly call this up on screen and just share these final thoughts with you. If it comes up, have you got that there? It says final thoughts. Yep. So just a reminder, it's a little bit cliche and tacky, but I'll kind of say it, you know, this too shall pass. Put a hashtag in front of it, make it even more sickly. But you know, this too shall pass is exactly the way that we need to think about this. This isn't forever, but you need to be smart about how you're playing the game until it passes. I'll make the joke one more time because I thought it was great, but I said on a webinar the other night that, you know, this too shall pass, but it feels like we're passing a kidney stone. So be prepared for the pain that we're going to go through, but know that it will pass. Remind yourself that you haven't lost everything, so make the most of what remains. If you've been in this for a couple of years and you've built a business and you've had some success with that, the fact that you've lost a part of your business does not mean that you've lost everything. So focus on what you do have and how can you maximise the assets that you've still got at play, understanding that the pieces that are missing, you'll either need to rebuild in the new world economy or you'll have those come back to you when the restrictions come off. Knowing that you're not alone in this and that help is available, I will be sending an email across to everyone following this session with all the contact details on there of how to reach out to our team. If you want to speak to anyone one-on-one to flesh out any of these ideas, I'd say do not hesitate to reach out. And in fact, anyone who's been on this call, I'll personally spend the time with you, sort of familiar with the industry and the discussion. So feel free to reach out for help. The point here being that you already have the skills needed to do this. Reminder that, as a business owner, you already zapped together that part of your brain that said, I see a solution, I see an opportunity, I believe I can do it better, and you built a business around it. You've already fused that part of your brain and it works well. Now you need to work that again in exactly the same method. Look around you, look for the opportunities, look for the problems, understand that you can do it better, and apply exactly the same thinking as to why you got into business to begin with, as to how you're going to get through this current side. Thinking community, and we really are moving now towards a more connected and localized economy. If you can't get it right in your backyard, you shouldn't be thinking any further than that. And especially when you're talking about food, I'm sure James could probably give the figure on it, but the reality is that there's a radius around where the majority of your business is coming from. So you really need to be looking close into the community, not judging all your decisions based on news.com.au, but having a look within the community that's available to you, and how you can best entrench yourself within that. And monitoring the stages was the point that James was making before, and reflect on the impact for each lever. There is not going to be a day where we wake up and we find out that there's no more restrictions, and that this is all over and it was just a bad nightmare. The reality is that these are going to be very small levers that get taken as we move forward. Each one of those levers introduces a new opportunity for your business that you need to consider what that means. And the most obvious one, if you have bricks and mortar and there's people coming in, you want to get back to that patronage, then we know it's not going to jump straight to as many people as you can squeeze in. It is going to be restricted to square meter space. So, consider what each stage looks like and make sure that you're preparing for those in each of the restriction stages. Where to from here? That's where we talk about it one-on-one. So again, I'd encourage everyone who's on the call tonight to reach out. Let's have a chat. If I can have 5 minutes notice before the chat, I grab a coffee, and we just sit down and talk it through and flesh out sort of where you're at, where we might be able to help with some of the initiatives that we've got here locally as Casey Cardinia region. But I think more specifically, just discuss the ideas of what you can do within your business. And what we do very well is work as facilitators to introduce you to the right people. So if there's specifically people in the community that are going to be able to help, then we'll find those right contacts for you and partner you up and start to explore some collaboration and opportunities there. So that will all be on the email that I send through. So we can close it out. Jane, can I ask you maybe for your final thoughts?
Sure. I think what I've heard all throughout tonight from every single one of us is there is no doubt that this has changed the way we do business. So if I can give any advice at all, it's take the time to reflect on what's working in your business and what's not working in your business. It's hard to take the emotion out of it, especially when so many other people are going through some emotional upheaval around you. But planning for the future, like Chris says, in increments, you've done it once because you've built a business. Just apply those same principles again, but take the time to plan it for the new order of things.
Fantastic. Clive, final thoughts?
Yeah, I probably suggest online community and connecting. Definitely focus on growing your presence online. Create a fan base, grow your fan base, nurture that fan base. People don't necessarily need to be eating your food to almost have a taste for it. You can almost kind of dangle the carrot in front of the horse, kind of thing. Give people an idea of like who you are, what your business is about, what the food is about, how good your food is, and give them that definition of your brand. But yeah, definitely grow the community online if you can. Just keep posting content, create content, post some content. If you don't know how to do it, there's lots of tutorials and things like that. But just I'd say that is kind of the future. Obviously, it's not going to go back to the same normal as we know. So the new normal, I think a lot of people are going to be residing even more so online and feeding in an online sense. So definitely start feeding that. Start moving towards where we're heading. That's my little take.
Love it. James, are you still there?
I think so.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hooray. I think the restaurants really need to focus on their own intellectual property. Restaurants started delivering, the supply chain. One of the strengths that the restaurants had was a strong supply chain. So when you couldn't get flour, when you couldn't get yeast, restaurants could. And the interesting thing was that some of the restaurants in the city, they started selling pasta, bread, flour, all of that sort of stuff through Deliveroo. Deliveroo saw the volumes that they were doing, saw the margin that they were making, and thought, hey, we could do that. And they just started doing their own thing. And they said, we're here to help everyone in these horrible times. You can order directly from us. They basically took the intellectual property, which was the sales items from the restaurants, took that information and then created their own product out of it, which is, if you're going to let people see that kind of data, you kind of deserve whatever it is that you get. Start taking orders online. Don't go sharing that data with anyone else. Use something like Frollo or whoever it is. Yeah, partner with 7-Eleven. They became, Deliveroo is the direct competitor to restaurants for a whole heap of reasons, which we won't talk about now. The biggest thing that I think the take-home message is, once you've got something like Frollo or your own FPOS system, whatever it is that you're going to do it in, the next step from that makes it really powerful is just do some Facebook marketing. We've got some podcasts, emergency Facebook marketing, running your first Facebook ad. We've done some pretty ordinary marketing in the last 4 weeks, and we've helped restaurants do some pretty ordinary marketing. But because of the fact that the whole world has changed fundamentally, some of those ads have been incredibly successful. At the end of the day, how much money do you spend on your ad campaign and how much money do you get in? We had one restaurant put some photos of an empty store, empty shelves in Coles, and just a really crappy photo of some burger buns, and said, we've got plenty of burgers, we've got plenty of bread, we'd love to deliver them to your house. There was not a lot of artwork in that, and that went really, really well. A significant, the kind of money that helps you keep the doors open. And that's what it is. You just got to get out there. You've got to do that marketing, put a little bit of budget behind it, $2 or $3 a day, maybe $5. Not a huge amount. And you'll be, some restaurants are really surprised at the kind of results they're getting. But you've got to be in it to win it.
Yeah, absolutely. Love it, love it, love it. I'm just going to touch on Michelle's point here. Mother's Day is a big opportunity too. Busiest day of the year normally for a restaurant. Dads might not be able to cook. I'm going to thank you, Michelle, for that message, and so is my wife, because I would have forgotten about Mother's Day had I not read that. So well played, and thank you. And partner with 7-Eleven. Nice. Guys, thank you for joining tonight. We will get all the information across to you as a follow-up email. I'll also put in the contact details for James, Jane and Clive, so you can reach out to them with any specific questions. And I'd certainly encourage you to take a moment to reach out for a chat sometime over the next few days about where you're currently at position-wise with your business, and let's explore where we might be able to help further. Thanks again, guys. I'll leave you off, and have a great weekend.
Thanks, Chris. See you.
Great work, Chris.
Hey, Chris,
Epic.
thanks very much. See you,
Thanks,
everyone.
guys.